I absolutely need to tell you something that has kept me wide awake for the past 72 consecutive hours. And I am not a man who loses sleep easily. Before we begin this discussion, I need you to do something for me. Please comment your city name below and tell me if you have noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently. NASA has quietly opened an informal global observation network, and they desperately need data from civilians. This is not a drill. They want to know exactly where these phenomena are being seen. Exactly 3 days ago, I received a phone call at 2:47 in the morning. It was from a colleague at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a woman I have known for over 30 years, someone who does not panic, someone who has stared into the mathematical heart of black holes without flinching. Her voice was shaking. She said 4 words that I will never forget. The pattern is perfect. She was talking about 3I Atlas. Now, for those unfamiliar, 3I Atlas is an interstellar object, a visitor from beyond our solar system, much like Oumuamua before it. When it was first detected in late 2019, astronomers classified it as a comet, an icy wanderer from the deep cosmic ocean between stars. It appeared to be fragmenting as it approached the sun, which is perfectly normal behavior for a comet. Ice sublimates, structural integrity fails. The object breaks apart. Textbook physics. We moved on. But we should not have moved on because something happened 3 weeks ago that has no precedent in the entire history of observational astronomy. The fragments of 3I Atlas, 37 distinct pieces, each between 50 and 200 meters in diameter, began to move, not randomly, not chaotically, as gravitational perturbations and solar wind would dictate. They began to arrange themselves into a geometric formation so mathematically precise that when I first saw the orbital parameters, I thought there had been an error in the data reduction software. There was no error. The fragments have formed a perfect dodecahedron, a 12-sided polyhedron suspended in space, rotating as a unified structure approximately 4 million kilometers from Earth. Each fragment occupies a vertex with positional accuracy measured in meters across distances of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The probability of this occurring naturally is so close to zero that it exists only as a theoretical limit in statistical mathematics, the kind of number we use to describe impossible things. I have spent my entire career studying the fundamental forces of nature, the architecture of space-time itself, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, nature does not work this way. Nature loves chaos, entropy, the gradual dissolution of order into randomness. This is the second law of thermodynamics, the closest thing physics has to an absolute truth. Yet here in the cold vacuum between worlds, 37 fragments of rock and ice are defying that law, maintaining a formation that would require constant intelligent adjustment. The question that kept me awake last night, the question that is now consuming every major space agency on this planet, is devastatingly simple. Who is adjusting it? Let me take you deeper into what we are seeing, because the geometric formation is only the beginning. When NASA's Deep Space Network turned its full attention to 3I Atlas, they discovered something that should not exist. Each fragment is emitting a low-frequency electromagnetic pulse, rhythmic and synchronized like a heartbeat. The frequency is 1.42 gigahertz, the hydrogen line, the same frequency that SETI has been monitoring for decades, because any sufficiently advanced civilization would know this is the universal frequency for communication. It is quite literally the wavelength at which the universe speaks. The signal is not random noise. It contains structure, repetition, mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, constants that appear in quantum mechanics and relativistic physics. This is not a natural radio source. This is not a pulsar or a magnetar or any astrophysical phenomenon in our catalogs. This is a message, and it is being broadcast from an object that originated outside our solar system. An object that somehow knew to break apart, to arrange itself, to call out to us at the exact moment in human history when we have the technology to listen. That timing, more than anything else, terrifies me because it suggests observation. It suggests intention. It suggests that something has been watching us, waiting for us to reach a certain threshold of technological capability before revealing itself, We are not the discoverers here, we are the discovered. I spoke yesterday with a colleague at the International Space Station who has been conducting visual observations with their best optical equipment. She described something that was not in any of the official reports, something she hesitated to include because it sounds too much like science fiction. But I trust her, and she has no reason to lie. She said the dodecahedron is glowing, not reflecting sunlight, but glowing, emitting a faint luminescence across multiple wavelengths, a soft blue-green light that pulses in time with the radio signal. The fragments are not just rocks anymore. They have become something else, something active, something that is drawing power from a source we cannot identify. When she described the color, she used a word that struck me as oddly poetic for a scientist. She said it looked organic, like bioluminescence from deep-sea creatures, as if the structure itself were alive. What does it mean for a collection of interstellar fragments to exhibit behavior we typically associate with life? The military implications have not been lost on anyone. I received a briefing request from the Department of Defense, a 3-hour session where I was asked repeatedly whether this could be a weapon, whether we are in danger, whether there is a defensive protocol we should be implementing. I gave them the only honest answer I could. I don't know. We are dealing with technology so far beyond our current capabilities that trying to assess its purpose would be like showing a smartphone to someone from the Bronze Age and asking them if it's dangerous. They would have no framework for understanding what they are looking at. But here is what truly keeps me awake. The detail that was shared with me under conditions of strict confidentiality, and which I am choosing to share with you now, because I believe the public has a right to know what is happening above our heads. The dodecahedron is not static. It is moving slowly, incrementally, but with clear directionality. It is approaching Earth. Current projections suggest it will reach a distance of 1 million kilometers, less than 3 times the distance to our moon, within 6 weeks, and then it will stop. Or at least the projections suggest it will stop, because the deceleration profile required to halt at that precise distance is already visible in the orbital mechanics, as if the trajectory were planned from the beginning. Something is coming to our doorstep, and it has announced its arrival with a geometric calling card that screams intelligence, technology, purpose. I have spent hours in discussion with astrobiologists, xenosociologists, and experts in artificial intelligence trying to construct a framework for understanding what we might be dealing with. The consensus, if you can call it that, is unsettling. The geometric formation is too perfect to be a natural phenomenon, but it is also too simple to be the primary function of an advanced technology. It is, in the estimation of several analysts, a symbol, a marker, the cosmic equivalent of planting a flag or painting a sign. It says, "We are here. We are intelligent. Pay attention." But why a dodecahedron? Why that specific geometry? One of my colleagues, a mathematician who specializes in topological structures, offered an interpretation that I find both elegant and deeply disturbing. The dodecahedron is one of the Platonic solids, a perfect three-dimensional form that has fascinated human philosophers and mathematicians for thousands of years. Plato himself associated it with the cosmos, the fundamental shape underlying the structure of the universe. If you wanted to communicate with an emerging technological species, if you wanted to use a symbol that would be recognized as artificial and meaningful, the Platonic solids would be an obvious choice. They are mathematical universals, concepts that any species capable of geometry would eventually discover. In other words, the dodecahedron is not for us specifically. It is a universal signal, the kind of marker you would leave if you wanted any intelligent species to recognize artificial construction. We are not special. We are simply the ones who happen to be here in this solar system at this moment in time. That realization is humbling in a way that borders on existential horror. We are not the center of the story. We are not even the audience. We are simply witnesses to something far larger, far older, far more incomprehensible than anything our species has ever encountered. There is a hypothesis circulating among the scientific community that I must share with you, not because I fully endorse it, but because it represents the kind of thinking that is now necessary. Some researchers believe that 3I Atlas is not a spacecraft, not in any conventional sense. They believe it is a probe, yes, but not one designed for exploration or data gathering. They believe it is a marker, part of a network, a system of cosmic buoys left by an intelligence that operates on timescales and distances we can barely imagine. These markers would serve as boundary posts, navigation beacons, or, and this is where the hypothesis becomes truly unsettling, quarantine indicators. What if our solar system is marked? What if Earth has been flagged by some galactic civilization as a zone of interest, a developing species that must be observed but not contacted? Not yet. The sudden activation of 3I Atlas, its transformation from inert comet into active geometric beacon, could represent a change in status. Perhaps we have reached some threshold, crossed some invisible line in our technological or social evolution. Perhaps someone somewhere has decided it is time for humanity to receive a message, or perhaps it is a warning. I do not say these things lightly. I am a scientist. I deal in evidence, in reproducible results, in theories that can be tested and falsified. But we are beyond the realm of conventional science. Now we are in a space where the data leads us toward conclusions that sound like mythology, like the fevered dreams of science fiction writers. Yet the data does not lie. The dodecahedron is real. The signal is real. The approach trajectory is real. Something is happening and we are not in control of it. Yesterday, I participated in an emergency session with representatives from NASA, the European Space Agency, Roscosmos, and the China National Space Administration. The discussion was remarkably candid for a multilateral briefing. Everyone agrees we need to send a mission to 3I Atlas to examine the fragments up close, to attempt communication if possible. But there is disagreement about timing, about methodology, about what we would even say if given the opportunity to respond to this cosmic message. How do you speak to an intelligence that can engineer asteroids, that communicates in mathematical constants, that operates on scales and timelines beyond human comprehension? What do you say when you are the primitive species, the ones who have just discovered fire, compared to a civilization that can manipulate matter across interstellar distances? The humility required for this moment is almost paralyzing. We are accustomed to being the dominant intelligence on our planet, the species that shapes the environment, that builds cities and satellites and particle accelerators. But in the context of the cosmos, we are infants barely able to crawl beyond our own atmospheric cradle. And now someone has knocked on the door, and we must decide whether to answer. There is another detail I must share. Something that emerged in the most recent analysis of the radio signal. The pattern is not constant, it is evolving. Every 12 hours, the sequence changes slightly, becomes more complex, introduces new mathematical structures. It is as if the message is teaching us something, gradually increasing in sophistication, as if adapting to our level of understanding. This suggests active monitoring, real-time adjustment based on observation of our responses or lack thereof. They are testing us, measuring our intelligence, determining whether we are capable of understanding what they are trying to communicate. And here is the question that haunts me above all others. What happens when they finish the test? What happens when they determine whether we pass or fail? I have dedicated my life to understanding the universe, to uncovering the elegant mathematical laws that govern reality, from the quantum foam to the largest cosmic structures. I have always believed that the universe is comprehensible, that with enough time and effort and intellectual courage, humanity can understand anything. But standing here now, looking at the data from 3I Atlas, I am forced to confront the possibility that some things are beyond us, not because they are mystical or supernatural, but simply because they operate at a level of complexity and scale that our brains, shaped by millions of years of evolution in the African savanna, are not equipped to fully grasp. We can see the pattern, we can measure the signal, but do we truly understand what we are looking at? Or are we like chimpanzees staring at a computer screen, able to recognize that something significant is happening, but fundamentally incapable of comprehending the deeper meaning? The thought is not comforting, but it may be accurate. In the coming weeks, as the dodecahedron continues its approach, as more data streams in from observatories around the world and in orbit, we will learn more. NASA is preparing multiple missions, fast-tracking launch schedules, coordinating international efforts. The scientific community is mobilizing with an urgency I have never seen in my 5 decades in this field. This is not just a research opportunity. This is a moment of species-level significance, a threshold crossing that will define the future trajectory of human civilization. Because if we are not alone, if we have never been alone, if our solar system exists within some larger structure of galactic organization and intelligence, then everything changes. Our religions, our philosophies, our sense of purpose and meaning, all of it must be reconsidered in light of this new reality. We are not the crown of creation. We are not the final word in consciousness and intelligence. We are one species among possibly millions, taking our first tentative steps toward cosmic awareness. And something out there is watching us take those steps. I think often these days about the Fermi paradox, the haunting question that has puzzled scientists since we first began to grasp the scale of the universe. If intelligent life is common, where is everyone? Why have we not seen evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations, despite billions of stars and trillions of planets? Perhaps we are seeing that evidence now. Perhaps 3I Atlas is the answer to Fermi's question. Not because it represents a visiting civilization, but because it represents the boundary of our cosmic nursery, the fence that has been around us all along, invisible until we develop the eyes to see it. We thought we were alone because we were meant to think we were alone, isolated and protected until we reached a certain level of maturity. That isolation may be ending. The quarantine, if that is what it is, may be lifting. And we must face the terrifying possibility that we are not ready, that we have developed the technology to see beyond our cosmic cradle, but not the wisdom to understand what we are seeing, not the maturity to handle what comes next. I am reminded of a conversation I had years ago with the late Carl Sagan, a man who spent his life searching for signals from the stars. He once told me that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence would be the most important moment in human history, but also potentially the most dangerous because we have no way of knowing the intentions, the ethics, the fundamental psychology of a non-human intelligence. We cannot assume they think like us, value what we value, or even perceive reality in the same way. The gulf between species on Earth, between humans and dolphins, between primates and cephalopods, gives us some hint of how vast the differences might be between humanity and something that evolved under an alien sun, shaped by completely different evolutionary pressures, operating with technologies we would call magic, because we lack the framework to understand them as science. What does the dodecahedron want? That is the question everyone is asking, but it may be the wrong question. Want implies desire, motivation, psychology, concepts that may not apply to whatever intelligence is behind this. Perhaps it does not want anything. Perhaps it simply is performing its function, following programming or instinct or some form of logic we cannot begin to fathom. Or perhaps it wants everything, and we are about to find out what it means to be the object of attention from a cosmic intelligence. I want to be clear about something because I know fear is a natural response to this information, and fear can lead to dangerous decisions. We do not know that 3I Atlas represents a threat. The signal contains no obvious hostile intent. The formation, while artificial and clearly technological, has taken no aggressive action. It is simply there, broadcasting, approaching, performing its mysterious function. Assuming hostility would be a mistake, a projection of our own tribal psychology onto something that may operate under completely different rules. But assuming benevolence would be equally naive. The truth is, we do not know, and we must prepare for multiple possibilities ranging from the transcendent to the catastrophic, with everything in between. What I do know is this: humanity is being given an opportunity, perhaps a test, perhaps a gift, perhaps a warning. Something has reached out across the light years to get our attention, to make us aware of its presence, to initiate what might be the first true dialogue between Earth and something beyond Earth. How we respond, the choices we make in the coming weeks and months will echo through history for as long as our species exists. Will we respond with curiosity or fear, with openness or paranoia, with the best of our nature or the worst. The dodecahedron is a mirror, and what we see in it may tell us more about ourselves than about whatever created it. I encourage you to watch the night sky in the coming nights. The formation is visible from Earth with a good telescope, a pale geometric ghost hanging in the darkness between worlds. Look at it and ask yourself, what would I say if given the chance to speak to the cosmos? What message would humanity send if we could craft one sentence, one thought, one expression of who we are and what we hope for? Because that moment may be coming sooner than any of us expected. The channel you are watching now will continue to follow this story as it develops, to share new data and analysis as it becomes available, to serve as a bridge between the scientific community and the public, because this information belongs to everyone. We are all part of this moment, all witnesses to what may be the most profound event in human history. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings, or perhaps its first welcome. But before you go, before you return to your daily life, I want you to sit with one question, the question that has consumed my every waking thought since I learned about the perfect geometry spinning in the darkness above us. If something vast and ancient and incomprehensibly advanced has been watching humanity develop for thousands or millions of years, waiting patiently for us to reach this exact moment in our evolution, what do you think they have been waiting to tell us? And are we prepared to hear the answer? Please subscribe to stay updated.